Good day, everyone. I am Mark Randolph Delis, your reporter for today about the Unit A6 Prototypes, Prototyping, and Field Tests. The literature in evaluating test tasks and items does not clearly distinguish between writing prototype tasks and writing tasks from existing test specifications. The assumption in most cases is that test specs do exist and that the problems surround how item writers can produce new items with items to spec fit. For many test providers, this involves a process of task review. Even with some high stakes tests, the review of tasks may be conducted only by one or two senior examiners or a chief examiner, whose expertise is thought to give validity to the test. This kind of approach, sometimes conducted with a very light touch, is referred to as moderation. While we do think that this kind of moderation is very important, it cannot deal with the very serious questions of score meaning and validity that we have raised. Anderson and Bach and Anderson and others deal extensively with how items are written and moderated. But the distinction between prototypes and operational test forms is not made. The question that we wish to address in this unit is, how do we know that the tasks we have selected for a test can be justified? To make this more specific, we wish to discover whether the responses to the tasks result in scores from which we make valid inferences to constructs. In other words, we are still concerned with the process of how we construct a test rather than how new forms are generated. It's about getting from nothing to something rather than having something there that merely needs to be recreated in an alternative form. Prototype comes from the Greek word prototypo. This is the symbol of prototypo in Greek, which is sometimes translated as archetype, made up as it is of the two elements, proto or first, and typos or type. The meaning of type in this sense is of a mold or stump from which other examples could be created. So the meaning of type here is means model. So the prototype means first model. Now let's take a look at the following definitions of prototype, to which range of industries and activities can the word be applied. According to fiberglass.com, it is a model for use in complete evaluation of form, design, performance, and material processing. Next one, the first working version of any device, software, product, or service, according to Prometheus.com. And then a working model that is not yet finished, but that represents the major technical, design, and content features of the site. Prototypes are used for testing, according to alco.org. The original form, which serves as a model on which successors are based, worldimages.com. A facsimile of an end product used to demonstrate a concept rapidly, check feasibility, and or gain acceptance. Georgetown.edu. By the way, facsimile means an exact copy or reproduction of something. According to the Oxford Dictionary of Business, prototype is a pre-production model developed to evaluate the feasibility of new ideas, materials, technology, and design techniques as part of new product development. The purpose of a prototype in language testing is not dissimilar to its purpose in engineering. What we wish to do is produce an item or task that fulfills a particular function within a larger test. The function of the item or task is to generate response from we can which we can make interferences. If we see the language test as a machine that needs designing and building, the first part of the design process is to ensure that the parts fulfill their intended function and contribute towards the working of the whole machine. The first part of the design phase is referred to as prototyping. That is the design and the testing of prototypes. Before we look at this in relation to the language testing, let us consider an example from industrial design. When manufacturing new products, companies need to build prototypes of these products to ensure that they work and that the parts do what they are intended to do. If a company actually manufactured the parts in the way that the consumer would eventually see them, the cost would be extremely high. It is much cheaper to conduct tests for suitability and durability on prototypes that are quick and easy to produce so that as features are changed, it is not necessary to retool machines completely or change the manufacturing process. This is why prototype parts are used for testing. Laser Prototypes Europe Limited is a company that specializes in prototyping. So according to them, these are the benefits prototyping. First, we have the physical models in a few days. Next is communicate your design intentions to your clients, to makers, and to other departments easily and highly effectively. Reduce time to market. Fully functional testing before any commitment to tooling. Ensures the right product to the market. Shorter development cycles. Lower development costs, accurate marketplace feedback, shorter lead times to in comparison to using conventional methods, allows simple and effective design changes before expense of tooling. In language testing, we need to ensure that the task we design engages the test takers in processes and produces a response which can be summarized in numerical or alphanumeric form, and from which we can make an inference to an unobservable variable or construct definition. From that inference, we then make a judgment about the likely ability of a test taker to perform in some future non-test situation. The task or item is the basic building unit for collecting evidence, summarizing it, and making inferences. By building prototype items and tasks and engaging in prototyping, we can ensure that the task type is right for the market in that it does generate the evidence that we need. Notice that this company uses the term rapid prototyping. In the early stages of testing a new product or a new task type, we need to find out very quickly whether it is going to work as an idea. Poor ideas are discarded, better ones are improved through iterations or repetitions in the design process. The quicker this is done, the sooner we can arrive at decisions about which item may survive into the operational test. This is why specialists in prototyping talk about reducing design costs and speeding up the time to market, or in language testing terms, the rollout of the finished test. In order to understand this analogy from manufacturing more easily, consider, consider the following extract from the website of Laser Prototypes Europe Limited. Stereolithography is the longest established rapid prototyping process and is an excellent process for producing fast, accurate parts. As the longest established RP bureau in the UK and Ireland, laser prototypes can offer an invaluable breadth of experience in providing many different industries with a very wide and varied range of models. So this is stereolithography, or also known as 3D printer. Prototype models can be built up to 500 mm by 500 mm by 600 mm, while larger parts can be built in sections and bonded. These stereolithography models can be used to check fit, form, function, and can be used as patterns in secondary tooling processes for short production runs of plastic and metal parts. At LPE, they offer models in a range of resins depending on the customer requirement, from snap fit requirements to high temperature resistance. So, what is prototyping? Prototyping is making or creating a simple or early version of something to test how it works. It helps you find and fix problems before creating the final version. At the end of this unit, of Unit A5, we provided an example of a task template with specific claims about the what the items were intended to measure. The item started from a requirement to test textual competence as a critical element of reading. And in order to test this, it was decided that evidence was required from students, which indicated that they were able to recognize lexical sets arranged in chains or collocations and groups with similar meaning, sets containing superordinates and hyponyms. The task type is one of many we could design for which we could make this claim. In rapid prototyping, we would subject this and other items to tests that would let us see whether parts would work well. Rapid prototyping. A rapid prototyping is quickly making a basic model uh, of a product or idea so you can test it, improve it, and fix problems before making the final version. Rapid prototyping of item and task types is made up of two parts: alpha testing and beta testing. Alpha testing, the first stage of testing a prototype, usually done by the developers or creators themselves. It helps find early bugs and issues before showing the product to real users. Continuing our analogy from manufacturing, alpha testing is the in-house testing of pre-production parts to decide if the design is adequate and to eliminate any very obvious design faults through expert judgment. In other in order to do this, we only need a small number of sample items. Let us look at our items again. So these are the items. Identifying experts to comment on this item type as a means of measuring textual competence may not be unduly difficult. We would probably select two applied linguists working on lexis or corpus linguistics, two teachers who have extensive experience in teaching vocabulary, and two language testers. We would ask them working individually to evaluate the likely effectiveness of the item type for its intended purpose and recommend any improvements that may be made to the design. Once they have done this, we may bring them together to discuss their reactions so that the item designers could focus on areas where the expert judges agree that there are design faults. So this is a sample design we have for alpha testing, where it will be answered or looked upon by our own experts first and comment on it or how to improve the test. It is in this test item, I tried anticipating and reasoning out what would be the facility value or the correct answer for each item. I came to conclusion that the answer for number one would be fish. It is because fish doesn't fit to correspond with the other words walk and lead, while the dog can. Then the second number is take. It is because the words elephant, horns, and bull are correlated to each other as animals or part of an animal. Yet, the facility value of the correct answer here is elephant. And upon reading more about this test, I came to understand that this was based on the idiomatic expression, take the bull by the horns, which means to face the difficult or dangerous situation with courage and take control of it. And because of having no background knowledge about it, I immediately belong to the difficulty index statistically. Now, the third number, I answered furniture because the words chair, stool, and sofa belong to category of furniture. The fourth one, of course, is bat. Obviously, pot, pan, and wok are kitchen items used for cooking food. Here, the last one, I answered audacious because there are negative implications for me about the words impudent, insolent, and pompous. But if you try to connect the words impudent, insolent, and audacious has a common denominator, which is insulting, while the pompous is only concerned about oneself without the need of insulting others, and that makes it the facility value here in this item set. Here is some sample feedback on this item and this item type from experienced teacher of English who has also written test items and prepared students to take language tests. What do you think of the items supposed to test? You could only make very general inferences because you have a variety of item types. If they got all of these right, we'd be dealing with an advanced student of English generally, but not academic English or anything like that. What knowledge, skills, or abilities would a learner need to answer each of these items correctly? Number four involves schematic knowledge. We associate pot, pan, and wok with the kitchen, but this may not be the case in other cultures. In some cultures, the word wok might be a problem if they aren't familiar with Chinese cooking. Cultural knowledge is needed in items 1, 3, 4, and 5. Although 3 requires less cultural knowledge than the others because it's likely to be more familiar. Number 2 requires not just the knowledge of an idiomatic expression, but also linguistic knowledge. When we're talking about student types, it would be a certain type of person who can do crosswords and think literally who would be able to do number 2. The fifth one requires the ability to remember the meanings of specific words out of context to be able to access a definition in mind. Do you think there are any problems with these items? If so, what? The answer to two is elephant for a native speaker, but for a non-native speaker, take would be equally correct because it is the only verb. We're also expecting the students to be able to recognize idiomatic expressions. This involves complex processes of association. Number five is a problem where there isn't any context because there are difficulties with formality and register. Recalling the meaning of a word out of context doesn't really test the if its words are in active vocabulary anyway. A lot of native speakers would have a problem giving definitions for the four of them and being able to identify the correct one without any kind of context. It's difficult to say which is the odd one out. The choice for number five would depend very much on collocation. There is also the problem that someone may know all the words but doesn't know the criteria of the person who set the task for the odd one out. In the case of number three, it would be selecting the superordinate. This type of task is one of more advanced is one of the that more advanced students are likely to find frustrating because they're able to see that there is more than one that's likely to be the odd one out. It's likely to create a negative washback. Can you suggest how these items could be improved? When you've got an odd one out item, there is almost always a way you can select another one, and find some kind of reason for it. For example, you could select sofa in number three, argue that the sofa doesn't have legs. Furniture, stool, and chair, on the other hand, have legs. This teacher has raised some questions about this item type. The next slides will show you the list of the interesting points raised the, in this item set. Cultural content. This was specifically designed into the items as a variable that would influence item difficulty, but it had not been hypothesized that cultural references may have a variable impact upon test takers. If the teacher is correct, and cultural inferences may make an item more difficult for test takers from one culture than another, we may be in danger of introducing bias into some of the items. However, if understanding culture rich items from Anglo-British environments is part of our construct definition, we may still decide to retain such items if they do disadvantage learners who are unfamiliar with the cultural idiomatic language usages. Construct irrelevant processes. The teacher says that only certain types of people would be able to answer the second item correctly. Those who would also be good at crosswords. This is not what the item is intended to test. This is an interesting observation that needs to be investigated empirically. If the item survives alpha testing, this would be appropriate research question to take forward to beta testing. Context. The teacher points out that all of the words are presented out of context, something that was not considered to be particularly relevant when the item type was originally conceived during brainstorming sessions. However, she goes on to say that the This requires learners to access definition in their minds or operate as if they were a dictionary. This raises a particularly interesting question about the how second language learners construct a mental lexicon and access this to use words productively in speech. A point which the teacher also makes. If item 5 turns out to be far too difficult for even advanced learners of English, it may be that the process of item writers thought would be activated by the item. Elimination of a word that does not occur in a lexical set could not be because this is not how items are stored in the mental lexicon. Correct responses and linguistic sophistication. Although these items were constructed to have only one correct response, according to the linguistic theory of chains and sets, it is argued that there are alternative correct responses. Further, it is argued that the more sophisticated and advanced the learner, the more likely they would be to create a context for the use of an incorrect word that would make it the odd one out, thus leading learners with a larger and richer lexicon to answer more items incorrectly. If correct, the hypothesis would result in the item type being rejected from a test immediately. Any item that systematically disadvantages test takers who have more of the construct the items are designed to test is by definition a poor item, does not provide useful information from which inferences can be drawn. We can see that for very little cost, we have collocated a great deal of valuable data that helps us to think about how useful our items or tasks are. We have the opportunity to revise them before taking them forward to the next stage. Beta testing. The second stage of rapid prototyping is beta testing, which is the external test of production items. The purpose is to test the items or tasks for all the functions identified with actual test takers or second language learners. At this stage, we may test the range of hypotheses, both those that have been developed by the test designers and those that have arisen from alpha testing. It is now critical to realize that the design process itself has generated a research agenda that we are only just belonging beginning to address. We will attempt to list the questions that we must start to address with our prototypes in order to decide if they are worth retaining in any form at all after beta testing, or if the expense of field testing is justified. And we must realize that for those items that are retained, the results of our research will begin to form the evidentiary basis of the score meaning for the result test. In beta testing, we have claims we wish to make. Correct responses to the items will allow us to make meaningful statements about students' textual competence in the specific area of fluent and automatic word recognition skills, size of recognition vocabulary, and ability to recognize common word combinations. Expected difficulty drivers. Are collocation or set items more difficult? Are items with superordinate as the key more difficult than options with hyponyms only? Does the inclusion of cultural idiomatic expression references make the item more difficult? Does the word frequency make the item more difficult? Are items with abstract nouns more difficult than other items? Assumptions. Do responses to items correlate with reading speed? Do responses to items correlate with estimates of vocabulary size? Can learners at different ability levels access relevant meanings for words taken out of context? Does the reasoning for the selection of a K become more problematic with increasing linguistic sophistication? Format and presentation. Can test takers understand the instructions easily? Do the font size and spacing impede responding to the item? Construct irrelevant variants. Do items with cultural or idiomatic references disadvantage subgroups of the test-taking population? Do collocation items test cognitive abilities unrelated to textual competence? In beta testing, we are not able to generate item difficulty statistics for our prototypes. The reason for this is that in rapid prototyping, we use only small numbers of test takers who try out small numbers of each of the item types that we have designed. Usually, this is no more than 5 in a group. This is not unlike the process used in testing an interface for a computer-based testing in order to ensure that the presentation model does not interfere with the test taking process. Fulcher 2003 describes this process, which is in part applicable to the beta testing of test items. The group selected should be as representative as possible of the future test-taking population, but with only 5 members, this may not be possible. However, there are sometimes reasons for selecting particular individuals in order to see if good readers have more difficulty identifying the key in these items because they are able to create a context in which each of the options may be correct. We would need a group made up of better readers. In this way, small groups of approximately 5 test takers would attempt the items at a time and provide verbal feedback both individually and in a group. What they are doing while answering the items, what they find problematic, and the reason for their decisions. This process is iterative and should be carried out as many times as necessary with new groups of learners who are representative of the population or subsets of the population until the amount of information that is being provided and recorded by the researchers becomes insignificant. Asking second language learners to do this cannot be undertaken without preparation. Setting up situations in which students provide verbal protocol as they actually undertake test tasks or after they have completed test tasks. In the case of speaking tests, for example, needs to be done with care. What is the most important? What is most important in is that the participants should be able to provide valuable information on the processes they are using in responding to the test items. For the for this provides substantive validity evidence that supports or weakens the hypothesis of the designers about why the test takers are responding in the way they do. In prototyping, the approach to addressing our research questions is mostly qualitative. Protocol analysis is ideal for addressing substantive validity questions, but interviews, questionnaires, and focus groups are also useful. For production tasks in the assessment of speaking and writing, discourse analysis also extremely valuable. This is because with the few test takers and rapidly changing and evolving task types, it is impossible to have sample sizes or incisors large enough to calculate useful statistics. We should note that at the time of writing, the authors are not aware of any data or evidence in the public domain relating to rapid prototyping activities from any major test development agency. This is not surprising either in the world of manufacturing or in language testing, perhaps with the exception of the automobile industry, the prototype concept car, because the process lead to the design documents that are blueprints of the product. The more research and the development that goes into design, the higher the quality of the end product. Much of the design information therefore remains proprietary to the company. However, many testing agencies do not have such information because the test design processes are very much ad hoc or necessary and based upon research that would enhance product quality, and quality information such as reliability and validity evidence is not available. Now let's come to the field testing. Field testing, often described as product use testing, with users from the target market. At this stage, the prototypes have been extremely tested and refined in alpha and beta testing, but this does not mean that there are no further changes to be made, or some items or tasks will not be eliminated from the mix at this point. However, taking tasks to field testing implies that initial decisions have been taken about the range and number of task types that should be included in on a prototype test, rather than the prototyping individual task or item types. In field testing, the items and tasks are still under investigation, but they are considered in the context of a larger product of which they are a component or part. In the development of the TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language, internet-based test IBT, that was launched in late 2005, we can see the process of design through prototyping to field testing as it was conceived 5 years earlier by Cumming and others, 2000. This document considers the constructs to be measured and the variables that the researchers thought could be operationalized in a set of tasks for which difficulty drivers could be established. A task model and reader-writer model are laid out briefly, and a research agenda set for prototyping and field testing. One of the new task types developed for the TOEFL IBT was the integrated academic reading writing task, which was hypothesized to have significant washback on the academic writing classroom. Some of the questions on this research agenda are: investigating construct irrelevant influences on score meaning. When it comes to studying internal test structures, is it necessary to have a minimum reading ability before it is possible to perform on writing tasks? Do the writing tasks relate to one another in theoretically anticipated ways? Do integrated tasks relate in expected ways to independent tasks? How about when studying external relations? What is the relationship of the new TOEFL to its predecessors? What is the relationship between new writing measures and qualities in writing that experienced makers and teachers value? Group comparisons are the differences between performance of graduate versus undergraduate students, native versus non-native writers, skilled versus less skilled writers, students before and after instruction. In Unit B6, you will read a study conducted by Cumming and others, 2005, which was conducted as a part of a field study of the prototype writing tasks that survived prototyping. This study addresses three key research questions. First, do the prototype tasks represent the domain of academic English needed for study in North American colleges? Second, do they elicit performances that are similar to performances in regular writing classes? Can the teachers understand the evidence claims upon which the task has been designed? This study therefore addresses a key element of the external relations between the prototype tasks and what writing instructors value, as well as addressing the substantive issue of whether experienced instructor could recognize from the task types the constructs and claim upon which the task had been designed. We can see in the field testing, we have access to much larger number of informants, and we are able to give a prototype test to the groups of test takers who are representative of the target test taking population. This allows the designers to collect statistical information on the performance of items and tasks in addition to the qualitative feedback that primarily informs rapid prototyping. Typically, item statistics can be calculated and we are able to begin to investigate the internal structure of the test. This is valuable if we have theoretical reasons to suppose that there are particular relationships between sets of items that are designed to test the same construct or different constructs. We would expect the correlations between these sets of converge if they were designed to test the same construct and diverge if they were designed to test different constructs. Initial studies can be done also to start to investigate the assembly model in which we might ask questions like how long it may take for the test takers to answer particular subtests, as well as the entire test. In so far, we understand its overall structure at this point. This will now begin to affect how we see the shape of the test and how many items or tasks of particular types we can use. As we know that the test length and reliability are closely related, we are now able to begin to estimate how reliable our final test is likely to be given the configurations we can put together. Further activities that investigate these aspects of field testing will be presented in Unit C6. Here, however, we will simply look at some item statistics associated with the item types that we have presented as potentially being useful in the measurement of textual competence. Although it is unlikely that each of our sample items would have survived to the field testing. Let us assume that they have. Let us assume that the designers were so keen on these items and that they wish to collect statistical information on their performance and see whether they were of value in a complete test. That is, does the item contribute to score meaning? Does it discriminate well between test takers who are stronger and weaker on the construct of interest? Are our difficulty drivers and assumptions connect? The calculation of item level statistics is very easy to do and is explained in Unit A7. And in most standard language testing texts, such as Alderson 1995 and Bachman 2004, we gave our 4 items to 14 students who were representative of a pre-university reading and vocabulary improvement course for whom the test was initially designed. In Table A6.1, we have presented some of the basic item statistics that are helpful in further evaluating the usefulness of these items. Each item is listed in the left-hand column and each of the options across the top, the value across the top. The value in each of the cells tells us how many students in our sample selected that option, and the correct option or the K is marked with an asterisk. The FV column stands for the facility value, which is nothing more than the proportion of test takers who selected the K. This gives an indication of how difficult the item is for the target test takers. Finally, the DI or discrimination index is a measure of how well the item discriminates between test takers who scored higher on the whole prototype test and those who scored lower on the whole test. So before we proceed to the table A 6.1, let us have a recap on the item type of the that we tackled earlier. So this is the test item. Okay. So this is the table A 6.1. Basic item statistics for 5 items included on a prototype test of textual competence. We can see from the facility values that all of these items are difficult for the intended test taking population, with the exception of item 4. The pattern of responses to items also indicates that some of the questions raised by our expert commentator in alpha testing were highly relevant. In item 2, for example, it appears that most test takers are selecting option 1. If the if this is because it is the only verb in the group, the purpose of our item design has been subverted. Examine the responses across these items, focusing on the most and least popular choices. What might this tell us about how the test takers are interpreting the items? Does this lead to any further hypothesis about the processes and are being used to answer these items? We will now repeat the set of questions that we generated regarding to the drivers of item difficulties that arose from the design process and alpha testing. and place a tentative answer next to each. Are collocations or set items more difficult? Set items appear to be easier when all the options are hyponyms. Are items with subordinates as the key more difficult than options with hyponyms only? Yes. Does the inclusion of cultural or idiomatic references make the item more difficult? Yes. Does word frequency make the item more difficult? It may not, as all items are equally difficult for this group of test takers. Are items with abstract nouns more difficult than other items? Yes. So now let us proceed to the iterative nature of the process. The first field test is not the end of the process. Information from each stage in test design and its associated research feeds back into the design. Items need to be revised and redesigned. Test specifications change and develop, and prototype tests are piloted to discover the mix of tasks and items that best provide the evidence needed to generate scores from which inferences are made. The design process should be recorded, each decision and its reasons constitutive validity evidence. In this process, the test specs become more and more precise until the point of which the designers have the evidence and the confidence to address the go or no go decision. In language test development, we should therefore think of any processes being not linear or fixed but iterative and dynamic. Iterative meaning repetitive or and dynamic. The process goes on until the very moment at which we decide that we have reached the optimal design to release a working, crafted product suitable for its intended purpose. In this unit, we have discussed and how we create a new test. This is very different from writing new items or tasks for a test that already exists and which is the topic of most other texts on language testing. We are concerned about the creation of the first form of test. Other forms are given are then generated from the text specifications. We have compared that test creation process with the design of products in the world of manufacturing. As a part of the design process, prototypes are created. These are used in rapid prototyping to discover whether the parts will work well within the larger product that is being developed. If this is done before the product goes into production, much money is usually saved through not manufacturing large numbers of something that may not work and therefore may not sell. In language testing, there is no point in manufacturing many forms of a test, reliable or not valid for its intended purpose. However, this is not to say that there are no test designers who produce tests of poor quality, sell them but fail to tell the customers of the potential faults of the product. Keeping a record of the process of test design, including all the decisions taken with the reasons for those decisions, is very important. Decision may sometimes be made on practical grounds, and at other times research may be commissioned to address design questions to which we do not know the answers. However, the record constitutes validity evidence that may be appealed to in a validity argument. It is quite possible that the entire record cannot be placed in a public domain, especially if the test has been designed by a company that has rivals with whom they would not like to share design secrets. But the entire record should be available for inspections by external experts, and key research or findings should be made available in documents that customers can consult to ensure that this is the right product for them. In conclusion, prototyping, and field testing play a vital role in the development of effective language assessments. Prototypes serves as a early models that help visualize the and refine test formats, while the process of prototyping allows for iterative design and improvement based on feedback. Field testing, on the other hand, ensures that the test items function as intended in real world settings, validating their reliability, fairness, and appropriate for the learners. Altogether, these steps contribute to the creation of high quality language tests that accurately measure learners' abilities and support meaningful assessment outcomes. And that would be all. Thank you.